I'm Ken Kessler. I've been with Hi-Fi News since 1983, and I think this is probably my 500th Hi-Fi show.
500th Hi-Fi show, great.
It feels that way.
It's only the first day, too.
I know. First half hour.
Okay, so as I'm walking from the station today, Ken, I meet a chap, and I mentioned that I'm in the Reel-to-Reel room, and the first thing he says to me is, Ken Kessler. He's been talking a lot about reel-to-reel in his Off the Leash column, and so I was just wondering, first off, when did the love affair with reel-to-reel first start, and what was it that kicked that off for you?
Well, I've had reel-to-reel all along, but it sort of went dormant. I stopped using it probably 30 years ago because it just wasn't practical, and it wasn't, in the sense of my writing, because it wasn't viable in the sense that there were no commercial tapes and there were no machines being made. It was I didn't really have the time to spare to indulge in it, because mainly when I'm using my hi-fi, it's for work. And for pleasure, I was listening to vinyl and CDs. What happened was 2 years ago, I was at a hi-fi show in Japan, and I went in and heard a demonstration of Sgt. Pepper 1970 commercial release on Capitol quarter track tape, and it massacred everything I'd ever heard. And I got back to the UK and found out that I had a copy. So I dug out my machines, and I've since acquired a few more. So I now have 8 reel-to-reel decks, and I've now purchased over 700 vintage tapes, because without any question they are so vastly superior to all other formats that it's not even open for debate. And there's also a technical reason as well. So the vinyl junkies cannot argue with me. I can just walk away.
Sure. That was actually going to be my next question, because I know that you have a particular fondness for the vintage commercially released tapes, and 700 is the size of the collection right now.
Yeah, but I think I've got to stop. I buy them all on eBay. I had a couple direct from a retailer and 1 or 2 from Discogs, but I would say that 95% have come from eBay. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, the prices are now going up.
Yeah.
And I find myself competing. But with 700 tapes, I've got enough of a cross-section of genre. I have everything: classical, jazz, folk, blues, soul, rock, pop, easy listening, Broadway soundtracks. And the surprises for me are that maybe a quarter of the repertoire I already have on vinyl. For example, I don't need to buy Doors albums, but I've now got them on reel-to-reel tape. But there's also genres that I wasn't even looking at, and I have one South American music, and it was just mind-blowing. And I'm not a big fan of easy listening, but I'm now listening to Henry Mancini and Ray Conniff and Percy Faith, and the recordings are breathtaking.
So the quality of the format is actually shifting what you're interested in listening to.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. So even though we don't review tape decks, for reviewing amplifiers and speakers, it's a phenomenal source. It's far better than anything else. I have to qualify this, though. If I play vinyl next to tape, as our friend Dave Denyer pointed out, not all tapes are better than their vinyl equivalents. I haven't found any yet, but I'm sure that's the case. But I have to be realistic, so that I still use vinyl when I'm doing a review, because if someone wants to try to replicate what I've heard in a store, they're not going to do it with reel-to-reel tape. So I am realistic. It's not going to be anything more than a niche, and you do have to sacrifice a lot to become a reel-to-reel devotee, because it's a pain in the arse.
Sure. Just quickly, one last question, if I may. If you could get hold of a master tape copy of any album since the beginning of time, what would you go for?
Probably Buffalo Springfield again.
Good choice. Thanks so much, Ken.
My pleasure.
Have a great show.